معاكم النهاردة من المركز الثقافي النمساوي علشان نتكلم مع الأديبة النمساوية لورا فرويدنتالر عن روايتها أعيش مع شبح. اللي شدني لترجمة الرواية الحالة اللي جواها. أحداث الرواية بتدور عن أنا اللي عندها هاجس بعد 20 سنة جواز إن جوزها على علاقة بست تانية أصغر منها، وفعلا بيظهر لها شبح الست دي جوه البيت. أنا اللي بقالها أكتر من 20 سنة عايشة في بلد مش بلدها بتواجه لوحدها شبح الخيانة اللي بقى عايش معاها بشكل مستمر جوه بيتها. وحدة أنا بسبب عدم وجود أطفال هي السبب الرئيسي ورا حالة الشك اللي هي وصلت لها، وبقت الحقيقة عند الشبح وبس. ومن خلال زوم ميتينج هنعرف تفاصيل أكتر عن الرواية.
So, Laura, your novel, Ghost Stories, will be published for the Arabic reader under the title, I Live with a Ghost. And it digs deep in the thoughts of Anna, the female protagonist, and she suspects that her husband of 20 years is cheating on her, and then she finds herself haunted by the ghost of that girl. How do you think that women from all different cultures of the world will relate to Anna and her confusion, and Arab women specifically?
I guess in a of course you can say the story itself, the plot itself. There's a couple, they are married for more than 20 years. Also Anne's life in general, she's a piano player, piano teacher. She's been teaching for a lot of years and she's also a bit tired of that. And very important for me in the book is also the aspect that she loses not only Thomas, her husband, but also the piano, which means, so during this story, the story is set during a year in which it's a sabbatical year. So she stops teaching, and that's when she loses ground. Because she stops, so during this year, she stops playing the piano. She can't approach the piano anymore, which means she loses her way of her art, her artistic practice, and her way of expressing herself. And this is very important, which leads me to the general experience that might be understandable or intelligible for women of different cultures and countries and languages, which is this alienation and the aspect of a ghost story that is that you no longer the perception gets unsure and unclear, layers of reality. What is reality? What is imagination? What is narration? My intention was to make shift these different layers, aspects of perception.
Is it hard for Anna to speak with Thomas about her doubts because she is financially dependent on him?
No, I think you mean the doubts concerning her teaching and her professional, her profession.
And her doubts concerning that he is now in a relationship with another girl. She did not confront him.
Yeah.
So.
It does play a role because speaking about these things, making things clear concerning their relationship would maybe have the consequence that things change, and the economic dependency of Anne is of course relevant. It is in the book. I mean, you have her discussions with her best friend, right? And her best friend is in a way more practical than her. She advises her to have a proof that Thomas is cheating on her, because it would be important if they separate and if it is about money. And she refuses. I don't want to give answers. Why does she refuse? I think it's in the text. What the more interesting for me is what does a reader make of the text, because there are different possibilities. It's not clear why Anne acts like this or like that. I don't want it to be clear in the sense. But the most interesting thing for me, what does a reader? How does a reader want to read it?
أغلقت باب حجرته ووجدت الفتاة واقفة في المطبخ بعد أن رشفت من بواقي النبيذ ثم نظرت إليها وسط الظلام. ركضت أنا بسرعة إلى المدخل وأطفأت النور حتى عم الظلام أرجاء المنزل، ولكن الفتاة ظلت واقفة وكأنها طيف أمام عينيها أو وهم يتلاشى من أمامها ببطء.
So do you think that Anna's self-confidence is a little bit affected by her menopause?
Of course it is. I mean, I think her self-confidence, her self-perception, the way she considers herself in the world, and she feels that the way she is considered and seen by other people is, of course, influenced by in which period of life. A woman of 50 years, more or less, that's probably the how do you say, die größte Zäsur, that's probably the most important shift from the fertile, young, potentially fertile woman to no longer fertile woman. It's one way to read the text is the interpretation of this young girl, and she calls it the girl. It's a bit strange, no? She could call her, I don't know.
She can call her the other woman, but she calls her the girl.
Right. And this, of course, gives you a hint that you could interpret this girl also as the child that they never had.
So Anna is French and Thomas is Austrian. Do you think that language can become a barrier between married couples?
Probably. I think as it is so fundamental to a relationship, at least in my view of the world, it is. How you speak to each other, it could become a barrier as well. This is one experience that the book reflects. All of a sudden she feels that she's not only economical dependent from Thomas, but also coming to his country, living in his language, means that she left so much behind, and he stayed within his context and within his language. She stayed with him there. Language is the basis for your relation to the world. So if this is not the language that you grew up with, the language of your partner, that is
it makes you out of her comfort zone. She's no longer in her comfort zone, and her husband is in his comfort zone, so it's a little bit clashing.
Yeah, you could put it that way.
Yeah. So Anna is a pianist, and many chapters in the novel are dedicated to international symphonies. Do you have any musical background that allowed you to convey these details in your writing?
I did play the piano for long years, but I'm not a pianist. I'm not good. It is important for me. It is important for me, and yes, it is important for the language, I think, because I do work a lot on rhythm, and I think the language, writing a text for me is in a certain way a composing.
Yes, I really wanted to ask you that, because I think when we read novels, it is really, we are used to authors describing how things look like. But I think that you have gone a step further. You were able to describe sounds and beats and rhythms and voices. So how challenging was it for you to do that?
It is challenging. It should be challenging, I think, to write literature. The process is on two levels. The one level is to find which which sound, which noise, which central impulse or need do you use for the text? Because every of these very little particles, elements, means something, of course. And then after that is the work on the language, which means which word can you find for it as reduced as possible. It's the way I work. I reduce as much as possible, and you need to work on the language in a way that the rhythm and the sound and the way you read it. Then I read it out loud also.
ودي كلمة أخيرة حبت الكاتبة توجهها للقارئ العرب.
So once a book is published and is in the world, it has its own life, and everybody makes out of it. Every reader makes out of it. His own story, her own story, and actually this is what I think is the most interesting part of it. What you as a reader make out of this book, you invent it in a way based on what I created, and so maybe the only message that I would indeed give to Arabic readers is, please feel free to read and to interpret and to move within this ghost story, this book, however you want to.
دي كانت نهاية لقائنا مع الأديبة النمساوية لورا فرويدنتالر وكتاب أعيش مع شبح. مستنيينكم تقروا الرواية ومستنيين رأيكم.